Hi everyone, this is my 3-litre Toyota engine running between 40 and 50% on HHO water gas. This device is creating hydrogen and oxygen direct from water within the vessel, which happens to be an old coffee jar. Sat at the bottom of the jar are two sets of marine grade A4 stainless steel washers bolted together and connected to the 12-volt battery. None of the washers have contact with each other. On the lid is an exit speed fit elbow pipe going direct into the air intake manifold, so the unit is under vacuum. My newer type now has an anti-flashback non-return valve and screw post electrical connectors, plus an 8 amp protective fuse. This unit runs at about 7 amps. To find an inlet manifold pipe, I pulled one out and checked for vacuum suction, which there was, and connected a T-pipe into it from the jar. This is the new modified jar with completely soldered cables from the lid connection terminal soldered right the way down to the washers. There is pressure contact at the washer end, and to make a good contact from the soldered cable to the washers, just tighten the nut and bolt together on the cell. I have used some Cat 5 cable outer sleeve, stripped it back and slipped the sleeve over the soldered cable so as to prevent any chance of shorting in the vessel. This unit cost me about £10 to create. Separating the two cells is some insulation ceramic material so as to prevent the two cells making contact and shorting. Okay, so what's the fuel? It's best to use deionized water to reduce any scaling and sediment. For roughly 1 litre of water I've used about 1/4 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. I haven't tried baking soda yet, but will do as others have recommended it, along with a teaspoon of white vinegar to keep the water and cells clean for longer. You may find that the jar will need a clean out once a week depending on mileage. I found that for roughly 200 miles I used about ½ an inch of water. You need to be aware that the more baking soda you mix will give you an increase in ampage draw plus heat plus increase in gas production, so a happy medium mix is required and will vary depending on your device and car's characteristics. Also, I found that the warmer the cells get, the more gas is produced, plus an increase in revs from the car's engine increases alternator ampage output, which also increases gas production. Here I have the new jar and non-return valve connected to a bubbler. On the lid is the exit elbow and screw power terminals connected to a 12-volt battery. As a proof of concept, the washing up liquid bubbles will be lit. I've just turned the lights down so the flash can be seen more clearly. In this section I'll be talking about how to make the cell. This cell has 6 large washers, which are slightly bigger than the other cell because I'm going to get this one going in this other smaller coffee jar. It has a good solid lid for drilling, and the cell will fit diagonally in the bottom, which is ideal. Right, here we've got the bolt going into protective pipe sleeving to stop any of the washers from making contact. You can easily cut this to size using a Stanley knife. On the end of the bolt it does have to have a washer because the size of the head is too small for the other washers. The other washers kind of slip over it. And yeah, so you have to pop this on at one end, yeah, and then the pipe, and then the other like fibre washers, and then so there's a fibre washer, and then you'd place the other washers over then. That's a 10 by 40mm stainless steel A4, and that also is a 10 by 25mm, and they all fit over the sleeving quite easily. Some of the fibre washers I found were a little bit tight, but they do go on. There is on the ends there. That's once the cell's tightened up and the soldered cable is wrapped around the plastic centre sleeve there, and you tighten it up, then you'll get a good connection against the washer. This is the side view of the washer, so you get a good idea of how I've constructed them. You can see there's 3 small washers in between 2 larger washers in each of the segments, and a fibre washer. I just wanted to show you the old vessel that I made using just standard cable. It's much better if you do solder all the cable right the way to the top, because I was finding that the copper was corroding a bit. So if you look at the left, you'll see that the brown cable is going to the big washer on the left, and then if you count 3 smaller washers to the right, you'll see there's a blue cable going to the next large washer, and if you carry on to the right, you'll see the brown going to the next large washer, and then the blue going to the next large washer. And what you'll need to do is make sure that all your browns go to positive and your blues go to negative. This is the new lid, which will have the electrical terminals and the exit pipe surface mount fittings drilled and screwed and glued into place using araldite glue, as it sets hard, creating a good airtight fitting. For the preparation of cables, strip back the 2mm cable sleeving, twist together the stranded cable, then solder all the way down. Make sure you get good solder joints to the inside of the lid connection terminals, as good contacts are important. I found it a little tricky because it takes a lot of heat to melt the solder on the terminals and the cables together. In the end, I used 2 soldering irons. Make sure to tin the terminals first. This means to melt some solder onto the terminals before soldering the final connection. You will find that the solder will bond more easily. This is just showing the cells sitting at the bottom of the jar and rough placement of the exit pipe and power terminals on the lid. I picked up the power terminals from Maplin's, but would have thought that Radio Shack would stock something similar. The pipe fittings came from a bar installation company, although a plumber's merchant should be able to supply something to fit. This one has a surface mount screw fitting. Also in the future I plan to have the anti-flashback material mesh or wire housed within this elbow, and also a moisture catching filter fitted to the inside of the lid on the exit pipe, so as to prevent any moisture reaching the air intake manifold when the vessel warms up. In this section I'll talk about the circuit and location of the vessel within the engine bay. This circuit shows from the positive terminal going to an 8A fuse. This is how I have it wired at the moment, but will eventually be taking the power from the fuse box, so this will mean the ignition switch from the key socket will be in circuit for safer isolation. I soldered all terminals from the battery to the fuse holder. Next is a 15A toggle switch, which is situated within the upper area of the footwell driving position. I used 2.5 cable, which is a good thick core, to carry the ampage, and soldered all ends onto the spade connectors for better connections. On the inside of the lid of the exit pipe I plan to use a cheap inline fuel filter first to see how it copes, and will also house a flashback mesh wire in the elbows and pipe from the vessel. In this still picture of the engine bay of my car, it shows my old vessel in the perfect position because it's located in a good airy space, a few inches away from the battery, the air inlet manifold and the fuse box, which is the box it's touching. Not all cars will be this simple to install, but it gives you a good idea of what to look for when determining suitable locations for the vessel. Once you have found your location, then find the jar to fit in that area and take it from there. I've noticed that some people are using bubble jars in line, but I'm trying to avoid this but keep it safe, as I've found there is better gas production under a direct vacuum. It's up to you.